Yep, I sold one of my Yetis, the SB 4.5 to be specific. And for what, you ask? A hardtail. That's right, a hardtail mountain bike made from good old-fashioned steel. And so many haters are like, you bought a what? Like a beginner's bike? And they're all telling me, dude, hardtails are old tech. They're cheap. They're not as capable. They're slow. And they're not as much fun. And they're like, why would you want a hardtail anyway? And honestly, I was asking myself that very question when somebody suggested I get one a while back. I mean, there are so many great full suspension bikes available these days. And for the most part, those full suspension bikes don't really penalize you in the pedaling department. But after talking to other more experienced mountain bikers and reading articles on the web, I convinced myself to give one a go. So I do like the idea of having a BMX or dirt jumper for street riding, but I couldn't hardly justify having one of those when I'd only ride it once every few months. But a hardtail mountain bike with an Eagle drivetrain and 2.6 tires can be ridden just about anywhere, even with my skill level. I spent months on the internet, reading reviews, looking at different bike companies and riding hardtails around bike shop parking lots. And I did learn a few things, like super slack is okay. It's even preferred if you're going to ride on trails. Because unlike a full suspension bike, as the fork on a hardtail compresses, the head tube angle gets steeper. I also learned that aluminum hardtails, while light and arguably more durable than carbon, can feel a bit harsh compared to steel frame bikes. And titanium frame bikes have the same lightweight, durability, and corrosion resistance properties as aluminum, but have the forgiving feel of steel. Can you imagine that? A bike that feels as forgiving as a steel frame bike, but 2 pounds lighter? 2 pounds! If you're like me, you probably can't imagine that, because we've always thought that the best bike frame material is either aluminum or carbon fiber. But once you try a steel frame bike, a hardtail in particular, you'll know the difference and can imagine why a titanium version would be so great. So all of my review reading and geometry comparisons led me to one UK bike manufacturer who makes steel and titanium versions of their bikes. You see, I had 5 criteria that were important to me in my quest for my first hardtail. 1, I needed to have a slack head tube. 2, I wanted to have ISCGO5 mounts for a bash guard. 3, I'm looking for short chain stays, and I mean like super short. 4, they have to make a titanium version of their bike. And maybe the most important is that bike has to be aesthetically pleasing to me. You see, I believe a bike that you think looks great calls you to ride it more, and I want to be stoked on every bike I ride. The Switchback from Stanton Bikes ticked all the boxes for me. You see, it's slack, it's aggressive, it's masterfully crafted, it's beautifully painted, and it's one hell of a fun bike to ride. And I mean ride anywhere. It's fun on flow trails, tech trails, jumps, street, and even the skate park. You see, at 65 degrees slack paired with a 160 fork, this thing will plow over chunk with ease. But with 415mm chainstays, it's super responsive. It's fast, and it's very agile. It's light but strong, stiff but compliant. It's simple, elegant, yet fierce all at the same time. I'm not sure if you can tell, but I really like this bike. If you're familiar with the channel or follow me on Instagram, you're aware that I'm well known for riding Yeti bikes, and I'm unapologetically a fan of their bikes. I do believe they are more than a myth. But that doesn't mean I think they're better than everything else. I'm just a fan. There's a virtual cornucopia of fantastic bikes available these days, and any given one will get the job done. Which is probably why a lot of you asked me what I was going to do with a steel hardtail while I have 2 carbon Yetis in the garage. My intentions were to alternate between the SB5 lunch ride and the Stanton Switchback. But when Friday night rolls around, I keep prepping the Switchback for my Saturday morning rides. And you see, I think it's because I have a full-time job and I'm relegated to riding once a week. So when I do ride, I want to maximize my fun that I have on that one ride per week. You may now be pondering the million-dollar question. Should you get a hardtail? Sadly, that's one I can't answer for you. You see, there are far too many factors that go into the correct answer. For instance, where you are in your mountain bike journey plays a big role in it. Like, are you a beginner mountain biker? Then yeah, a hardtail is a great bike for you. But conversely, if you've been on a full squish for some time, a hardtail will probably spice up your local trails for you. Where you ride plays a huge factor into this too. You see, if your trails are fast and flowy, you'll probably love riding an aggressive hardtail on them. But if your trails are really steep and chunky, well, you'd probably love riding an aggressive hardtail on them. If you like keeping your tires planted to the ground, a hardtail is probably a good option for you, as you do get a lot of bang for your buck when pumping. But if you like to jump your trail bike, a hardtail's lack of rear suspension creates a lot of consistency off the lip and is a ton of fun. And if you just absolutely have to be the first to the top of the mountain, then a hardtail is for you. All kidding aside, riding a hardtail, I feel, has sharply increased my skills and made me a faster rider. But on a bike without rear suspension, your legs are the suspension, and you can get beat up more on chunky stuff.
A little chunky.
But as you continue to ride, you'll start finding those smoother lines, and as you're riding the smooth lines, you are riding the fast lines. But what happened for me was, in always looking for those smooth lines, I began to see extra credit lines on the side of the trail. And it should come as no surprise that those extra credit lines are almost always more fun. So yeah, I have sold my SB 4.5 and I will be selling my SB 5 Lunch Ride. But pump the brakes. While this new aggressive Stanton switchback far suppresses my fun to ride expectations, I do believe another full suspension bike needs to be in the garage. To find out which one, you'll have to stay tuned. Thanks again for being here, guys, and if you want to learn more about my Stanton switchback, consider subscribing because I'm going to have a bike check video coming out that's going over all the bits and pieces and details about it. And check the description for a link to Stanton's website. So until that bike check video comes out, thanks for watching.